Hi again, Tom Bertucci with T&B Technologies. Today's video actually is going to be in two parts. I'm going to talk about Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference because I was able to go there and this past week for a couple days, and I want to give my thoughts on it. So I'm going to do this in two parts. The first part is going to be the consumer side, from a consumer standpoint. Because even though this is a developer conference focused on technologies, it's also got a lot of consumer impact. So I'm going to spend the first video talking about what I think the impact is for consumers, because that's typically what you've seen and will see with respect to all the news, right? Most of the people are going to talk about the consumer stuff, or pseudo-consumer stuff, if you will. In the second video, since this is going to be kind of long, I'll focus on the technology and the stuff that appeals mostly to developers, which I am one. So first, in general, Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference this year, 2019, was held June 3rd, started June 3rd in San Jose, the McInerney Convention Center in downtown San Jose, so-called WWDC, as they like to call it. I was able to get an invite. It's very hard to get them. There's 5,000 people that get to go, and I don't know, probably 50,000 would like to go, even though it costs $1,600 registration fee. They have people clamoring to get in. Last time I went was 2011, actually, when Steve Jobs gave the keynote, his last keynote, sadly. So this year, I went this year. I got my little Tom T&B Technologies WWDC thing just to prove I was there. They greet you. They're all happy to see you. They give you a gift of this wonderful jacket, you know, and it was like 85 degrees in San Jose, and they give you a jacket, and people actually wore this. They actually put this on immediately. It was kind of chilly in the morning, but in the afternoon I saw people wearing it. And I don't know if you can see that. It says WWDC right there. So it's very understated, which is nice until you look at the lining, and then it's kind of crazy, but I'll probably never wear it. I don't know. Maybe I should auction it off. They also give you these cutesy little thingamajiggies. I don't even know what they are. I think they're magnets. You can't even see it really easily. Little magnets. Apple logo, hello, the exploding head, because your head's going to explode, and for some reason there's a heart. And then also the American flag, because we're proud to be Americans, I guess. I think maybe they got a deal on the flags. Anyway, so it was good to go there. Lots of people there. The keynote was crazy. You know, I was kind of wondering about Apple. They pretty much have a saturated market. So I was curious to see how things went. It was still a lot of interest, and a lot of people, a lot of fanboys, and a lot of excitement. People just clamoring for things. So that was good. I'll give you my general impressions at the end, but I think what is more important than ever, not what they said at the conference, but what they didn't say. And I'll talk about that at the end, because I think that really portends the future. That and where I think they're going with some of these announcements, which all by themselves don't make much sense, but when you put them together, I think they really do indicate something significant. All of that at the end, if you are willing to actually watch this thing. If not, whatever. I'm going to talk about the consumer today. It's going to be, I'm thinking about dark mode, Mac Pro, ProDisplay XDR, TVOS, AR and Reality Kit, iPad apps, iPad OS, Catalina, iOS 13. I'll probably talk about SideCar and iTunes going away in this video. So it's going to be kind of packed with stuff. If I get around to it, I'll put some B-roll in. Don't know if I took a lot of pictures. If I get around to it, I'll put a little indicator down below that shows, you know, what time code each topic is. If I don't get around to it, I'm sorry. So let's go. So in no particular order, dark mode. You know, that's going to get the press. There's a few things that are going to get the press in this, and other things just won't. dark mode gets the press because it's something you can see and it's interesting, but in reality, it's been done. I mean, it's interesting how Apple, they'll look around at their competitors, primarily Android, and they'll say, that's a good idea, well, let's go put that in. And then when they announce it, they act like it's some new thing. Like, wow, we now have this great thing called dark mode, and look at what it can do. And I guess I get that. I mean, if I was doing this running product management for something, and I saw a competitor had a great feature, and I could legally, utilize it or repurpose it or leverage it or steal it, depending on where to put it, I would, right? And I probably wouldn't give them any press and say I took it from them, but it just seems a little disingenuous to act like it's some brand new thing when competitive platforms have had it for a long time. Anyway, dark mode. It's cool. I like it. I use it already on a Mojave, in some aspects of Mojave, so it's good that it's coming to iOS. Mac Pro and ProDisplay XDR. This got most of the press because it's a hardware device. It replaces a much maligned hardware device, the old Mac Pro. And this time, there's a lot of people, a lot of press coverage out there, which is negative, saying hey, it looks like a cheese grater and it's way too expensive. And it may look like a cheese grater. I really could care less. With the Mac Pro, with all these things, but most specifically with the Mac Pro, you've got to think about one thing. Who's the target market? Okay? And I got to tell you, for this product, the target market's probably not you, and I know it's not me. Okay? It's those guys that can afford to spend between $25,000 and $45,000 on a workstation because they need it, because the alternatives are a lot more expensive, and this thing gives them a better bang for the buck than what else they can get nowadays. And I believe, I'm not in the business, but I've spoken to some people who are, and I trust what they say. I believe this actually hits the target for those people. The thing you got to realize is that this is a signature product. It's not going to move the needle at all for Apple's business outcome. They're not going to make their money back on it. No way. Because signature products are designed to inspire and to indicate, showcase the technological prowess of a company, but not necessarily to make money. I mean, look at the Corvette for Chevrolet. They make the Corvette, they sell the Corvette, and people love Corvettes, and then they go buy a Chevy, another Chevy, and they think, well, I've got a piece of a Corvette. Everybody does that. Everybody makes, if you're good, you can make a signature product in some area, and then you can leverage that cachet across your product line. That's the essence of product management. If you can afford it, number one, and they can, and if you really, really know that high-end niche market, and you give them exactly what they want. They missed the target with the original Mac Pro. I know people looked at it and said, it's not expandable, it doesn't have the lifetime, I'm going to buy this thing and it's going to be obsolete in 2 years, and I'm not spending that much money for something that I can't tweak and do it exactly the way I want to do it, and it doesn't compete well with the alternatives out there. If it does right now, it won't in 2 years. But with this device, I believe they hit the mark. The Mac Pro, starts out 8-core, 8-core Xenon, Intel Xenon CPU, up to 28 cores. So that's a lot. You can add up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM. Terabytes. So this thing can really massively compete. It's got 6 PCI Express slots. So you can have a lot of expandability, all different types of functionality. They brought that back because they made a mistake and they know what they realized it. And the graphics is expandable as well. The graphics cards go in, you can have more than one card with a ton of graphics processing capability. All that stuff is expandable and replaceable, and therefore I believe will be able to grow over time. But that capability, the huge technological capability they have, it does not come cheap, right? And it's not going to be cheap. And the kind of people who want this capability know that, and they're willing to spend the money because the alternatives are more expensive. That's the only reason they're going to do that. They want to be able to process 3 8K streams of raw video simultaneously. You want to process, hundreds of audio tracks at the same time. They want to do all these different things, super dynamic range photography comes, it's not cheap. So the computer itself has a base price of $6,000, I believe, 8-core processor. I don't know how much RAM. No one's going to buy that. I mean, unless you just want to take it apart and look at it, but you're not going to buy it. The guys who really are the target for this device are going to buy a thing with a lot of cores, probably 28. And when you get all that RAM in there and you get all those cores in there and you get all the options tricked out with the graphics you need, you're going to be up around $35,000 to $45,000. And that doesn't include the display. So that's a lot of money. But Apple's done their homework on this one. And I really believe people who really need this will like it. But it's not going to be a big market. It's going to be very, very, very small. It's going to be a signature product that people can point to and say, this movie was done entirely on Mac Pros. And that will be the cachet effect. Now let's talk about the ProDisplay XDR, which is the display that goes along, the companion display for this computer. Another fantastic 32-inch 6K studio reference display with, they call it extreme dynamic range, which is where XDR came from. Super high dynamic range. Extremely fantastic, awesome display. I went to a private showing that you had to sign up for, that you could talk to some people about. And one thing that I talked with one of the engineers, I'm like, he showed me about the dynamic range. Look at all the dynamic range you can see on this display. And I said, that's really great. But if I don't have this display, who's going to be able to see it? If I put it on a regular display, you won't see that dynamic range. And he kind of, yeah, but he said, ideally, the professionals, they want to be able to see all the dynamic range they have access to and then decide how they're going to pull it into a more accessible display space, which I get, I tend to agree with. Another thing to think about is print has much more display latitude than electronic displays. Although nowadays, magazines, posters, I guess there's a market for that, but I just don't know how much as there used to be years ago. But it's a fantastic display. But that did not get the press. What got the press was the stand. This display, all by itself, is I believe $5,000. And people go, and they announce that, and people went, it's expensive, but it's super good, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, and if you want the stand, it doesn't come with a display. If you want the stand, it's $1,000. And there was like a in the crowd. And the reason is, most of the people in the crowd are not the target customer for that display and that stand and that computer. When they all go together, if you put all that stuff together, you're spending 50 grand. Who's going to do that? Not me, but maybe the guys that do, full-length feature films with a lot of, CG. Maybe. But I believe they're the target market for this thing. And I think this is funny. This is classic consumer response 101. Is the fact that they could have just said, you get the display and get the stand and it's $6,000. And people would have went, that's bad, but okay. But they didn't. They went, you can buy the display for $5,000 and the stand for $1,000. They went, oh my God, $1,000 stand. You got to be crazy. So 2 points about that. That goes to show you that when you're dealing with consumers, you don't piece price your product, you bundle them together so they can't see the individual costs and components, or else they'll pick you apart and say, this is ridiculous, this is not. But again, the target of this device is not consumers. It's the people that build stuff for consumers, like, they make movies and, serious audio processing and all that good stuff. So I believe those guys, I believe the target for this device will appreciate the unbundled pricing, because there's a VESA mount, or a VESA mount, whatever, on the back of the monitor. So if they don't want that stand, they have their own setup or they're going to have them all against the wall, they don't have to buy the damn stand. And they appreciate it. I don't want to have to buy that $1,000 stand if I don't want it, right? That's the first thing they would have asked, I guarantee, if someone can say the $6,000 for the stand and the monitor. They go, well, can I get it without the stand? It's the first thing they're going to say. And if they can save $1,000 and they're buying 10 of these things, they're saving $10,000. They can buy a couple more monitors. So it's a good deal. And the kind of guy who's going to be interested in this hardware is going to appreciate the unbundled pricing. The problem is the people doing the reporting are not those guys. So anyway, that's the Mac Pro and the ProDisplay XDR. TVOS, I'll just talk a little bit about TVOS. It's okay, you know, it's evolving, so it continues. I really don't believe they have it. They haven't cracked that code yet. I don't care what Steve Jobs said years ago. They still don't have it. I went to some serious talks about, how we're going to make our TVOS compelling and like that. They're not there yet. But one thing they did, which was really smart, is they've now opened up the platform to support third-party gaming controllers, most notably Xbox and PlayStation controllers. Very, very smart move. They own the market. They have the best hardware. Why go out of your way to compete with that? Because you've already got people with all these controllers already, and what they've done is lower the barrier to entry for their gaming platform because people can just plug them in and play. Smart, smart move. And I believe it signals a willingness of Apple to do what it takes to bring people into their ecosystem. And they're just at the beginning. Believe me, I believe there's stuff coming, and I'll talk about it later if you wait, that will showcase that they're trying to do whatever they can to expand out. And not just bring people in, but expand out to grow that ecosystem. Because let's face it, you know, their own Apple fanboy market is saturated. They got everybody who loves them. Now they got to get the people who don't love them. And in order to do that, they can't stay in their own backyard. They have to go to their backyard and not pull them over, but maybe go play in their backyard. That's what I think is going to happen. So that's the TVOS. AR. AR was big again this year with the introduction of Reality Kit, Reality Studio, so that developers can more easily support AR. It's another tech demo. It's another thing which is like a signature. This is what we do. Look how great we are. But again, I don't think, like the Mac Pro, the ProDisplay XDR, I don't believe it's going to move the needle for their business. And I don't believe that's why they're doing these things. I think they're doing these things to showcase their technological prowess and to make people believe in the platform and show, wow, these guys really got it together. We better go over there and play with them because they know what they're doing. And they've got a lot of great technology, and I'll talk about that in the next video. But they did have a great demo. The guys from Mojang came and demoed Minecraft and the AR version of Minecraft. So they held iPads up and they had a table, and the little Minecraft world pops up and you can build it right there in 3D and you can walk around it and you can see it, and they can show it on the monitors. You can see right there on their tabletop the Minecraft world, and that was kind of cool. But the real cool part was when they flipped the switch and the world dropped through a imaginary hole in the table, whoosh, and then whoom, came up on the stage, gigantic size. The same, they have this huge stage they're sitting there on, right? And they used it, and this whole world came up life size, and the players got in the world. And they were standing inside the world, and you could see on the VR that they are part of the world with person occlusion so that they could determine, I don't know how they do this, it's awesome though, they can determine whether a person in the world is in front of or behind a particular 3D object that is being displayed through AR. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so my Sony a6000 died after 20 minutes, so I'm going to have to learn to either do this in parts or talk faster or have less content. So I do apologize for the length of this video, but there's a lot of stuff that happened at WWDC. I originally was going to put it in 2 videos. I think I'm still going to do that, but anyway, I still want to cover the consumer stuff in this one video. So we were talking about Minecraft AR. I talked about that. I think it's a big deal for a showcase, but it's not really going to move the needle from a business standpoint, at least not anytime soon. Next, iPad apps on Mac. Another component to what I think is a larger strategy, which they're not letting on, but a lot of iPad apps out there, a lot of iOS developers, not so many Mac apps, not so many Mac developers. It's really hard for them to monetize Mac apps either. So how do they fix that problem? Well, they just make it so that an iOS developer can write an iPad app and click a button and it becomes available on the Mac. It allows them to monetize it, allows all these developers not have to learn another platform, because it's not exactly the same writing code for the Mac than it is for iOS. So they just sidestep that problem. I believe it portends more for the future, but more on that at the end if we actually do get there without my iPhone, without my camera overheating. So iPad apps on a Mac, good thing for people who have Macs. Again, not a needle mover. Other things, SideCar. I can take an iPad and I can use it with certain Macs that are upgraded to Catalina, which is a new OS, as a secondary display without any extra effort. I just plug the thing, even use it with Wi-Fi, and suddenly I say my desktop gets extended over to that iPad, and I have, if it has the ability to use Apple Pencil, then I have to use it as a, I can use it as a pencil-enabled display as well. So that's kind of cool. That SideCar functionality may be neat for, again, a limited subset of people or artists or people who just want to have another display there. I have plenty of displays in my system here. Don't need them to help me do it, but interesting. But again, not going to be a major impact to their business, I don't think. None of these things are. So Catalina is the new OS. Lots of cool things. Craig Federici got up and showed off his hair and talked about all his great stuff. And you know, a lot of great technology, tons of technology. I really am impressed with the capability, the prowess of Apple. Will people care? Will it move the needle? Maybe the pundits, maybe the influencers, they'll find something they really like and talk about it. Maybe I will. I don't know. I'm not really an influencer or a pundit, but maybe. But I don't think so. iOS 13, iPad OS, all the OS versions, kind of a yawn to me. Certainly for a consumer, they're not a major, nothing major there. The only thing, maybe, iTunes is going away, which it should have been gone away a long time ago because there's too much stuff crammed into iTunes. All they're doing is taking iTunes functionality, interacting with devices, music, and videos, and separating them into 3 different places now. Now you got to go to the Finder for your device connectivity, syncing, and you've got to go to different apps for music and videos. So again, I think all that's going to do is frustrate consumers because then they're going to have to learn something new, and they don't like that. So I continually think about this from the standpoint of my wife. My wife is not a technical person. She doesn't want to know about the technical details. She just wants things to work. And we were having lunch when I got back, and she's like, well, what's new? What would I find exciting? And I'm thinking, going like, what would you find exciting? Probably nothing. She doesn't care. Most consumers don't care. Most of the people in that room, they care, but they're developers. It's a developer conference. So from a consumer standpoint, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's going to be it's a big deal. But I believe that Apple is sowing the seeds for a movement which is going to allow them to be more profitable in the future. And let me just say a few words about that before my camera dies, if it does. I believe iPad apps on the Mac, the way they're going to be supporting third-party controllers for TVOS, the way they talk about multi-platform capabilities for their technology, the way they're focusing on privacy, which is a big, big deal. And consumers might care about that, but most of them, I think, don't. With sign-in with Apple, shot across the bow right at Facebook and others, and Google, of course. They're they're trying to differentiate themselves from other people, saying, "You own your data. We can't even see it. We're not going to let other people get access to it without your permission." Key tenets of privacy that, if they deliver, will be significant. The question is, who do you trust? And do you trust Apple? Because someone once said to me, trust is a proxy for complex decision making. And it really is. You have to have trust in something. Certificate authority for your certificates, whatever. You have to trust someone. And who do you trust? I trust myself. I'm not sure I trust big corporations that are run by thousands of people that you can't necessarily police. You can't. So it's good. They said all the right words. But I believe they're trying to differentiate themselves from Google and from others so that they can make a bigger play. Google's doing it too, by the way. Google is everything's in the cloud and you don't need to know about details and will abstract it away for you. Apple is everything's on device. We're putting all our image processing, our speech processing, our AR, our VR stuff all on device so the data doesn't go up to the cloud. The distinct differentiation because they're sowing the seeds to move into Google's ecosystem. The way Google's trying to move into theirs with Flutter and Dart, which is another video. But I don't know who's going to win on this, but I believe Apple's ecosystem is saturated. They need to do something to expand out and to grow. Otherwise, they're going to be like a lot of other bigger companies that I know and love and have been a part of where, you expand so far and that rapid growth has to slow. And then what do you do at that point? And there's a lot of mistakes that can be made and very, very few good choices and good paths. So I don't know what Apple's doing. I don't have any privileged information into what they're trying to do. But it looks to me like they're trying to come up, especially with things in the next video when I talk about Swift UI and Swift NIO and things like that they're working on from a developer standpoint. They're trying to make it so it's truly cross-platform development. I mean, they call it now, it's cross-platform. It's not. It's across Apple platforms, which you call, Watch and TV and iOS and Mac OS platforms, but they're all made by Apple, owned by Apple, run by Apple. That's a lot of technology. I'm not trying to belittle it, but comparatively, that's easy compared to be across other people's platforms that you don't control and who don't necessarily want you to do that, right? That's a tough moving target, which is really hard to achieve success with. But I believe they need to do that. They need to come up with a way to write Swift code that runs on Android devices. They need to come up with a way to let developers write an app once, have it run everywhere. They need to come up with a way to expand beyond the friendlies and go to the less than friendlies, but curious people who are willing to use their apps, but not necessarily buy their platform initially. That's what they need to do. I believe they're sowing the seeds for that now. They're not going to talk about it, of course, but that's what I think I see going on here. And it's very interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the coming years. That's it for this video about the consumer side of WWDC. I do apologize for the length. Tried to talk as fast as I could. Got my East Coast voice going there. But the next video will be about the technology side, and it may be as long, I don't know. But thank you if you stayed this long. If you didn't stay this long, you can't see this. But thank you, and stay tuned for the next video.